with your experience as a guide and running pheasant hunters through, and you're controlling the dogs and you're keeping an eye on everybody, and you have people coming in who are all different skill levels, all different
Yes.
experience levels, different personalities, different goals for the hunt. Did that experience, maybe I'm way off base here, but having to put so many different kinds of hunters on birds while you're working dogs in there, did that sort of set the basis for your training style, which is, one of the main reasons I wanted to get you on here? You're focused on not only training dogs but training handlers, and you're like, I have to take care of these four-legged critters, but I have to make sure the two-legged critters know what they're doing too. And did that come into play? Like, was that sort of a formative thing to have to guide?
Well, people skills, obviously, like
Yeah.
every, all walks of life. I think for me, I tell everyone, we'll work with some people, and we've helped some people that want to start guiding and so forth. And, it was real simple, Tony. The number one rule is I'm coming home safe. I'm going to make it home alive. And then number two was my dog's coming home safe. And then number three, the sports, or, in New England, the hunters, the sports, they're going to get home safe. I don't think I'm better than anybody else, but I'm number one when I'm out there. So, when you view it that way, the quality of the dog and how the dog is reacting and so forth becomes quite secondary. But what you do need is you need to have dogs that you can trust, and you need to have dogs that are incredibly well trained. You don't necessarily need the best bird finder. You're getting paid to get birds in the air and everything that goes in with that. But if you pound enough cover, there's going to be enough opportunities. But one thing you absolutely have to have is you have to have a dog that responds when you give it instruction. Because if you have to be trying to find the dog, if you have to be worried, did the dog hear me? Someone's going to get shot. And so oftentimes, the dog may go past me and, let's say, off to my left, but I'm scanning to the right. Where's the gun? Where, the hunter, how is he holding it? Is he stumbling? Does he look tired? I'm no longer looking at my dog, and I'm just intuitively maybe giving a little whistle or something. I have to trust that dog is going to come back around. Every group has a safe hunter and an unsafe hunter. And it's really not intentional by any stretch, but most guys, they hunt. That's it for the year. Yep. They come out on a trip and they're going to hunt 3 and 4 days. And it would just be unreasonable to expect that they would be as safe with a gun and as good a shape to be safe with the gun. That's really where gun safety falls apart. People get tired, or there's a space between the birds, and so they lose focus. That's the danger period. When everything's going great and there's a lot of action and everybody's happy and everybody's really keyed up, not so much, from a danger standpoint, but it's when things slow down that it's a problem. So I would say, the long answer or the short answer to the long explanation is just it probably developed my strong philosophy that the dogs and I have to be in a relationship that they're comfortable with and I'm comfortable with.
Yep.
And that is fundamentally what we believe. We're relationship builders.
Okay. Yep. So what I'm hearing there, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you look at this and you go, there's so many dynamic. The situation's so dynamic when you take a new group out and you're hunting. You want it constant with your dog. Like, you want that relationship and that trust where you don't have to think about what your dog's doing. Like you said, you just intuitively give a whistle or a point or something, and you can rely on that dog to be doing what he needs to be doing. And that dog knows you're doing what you need to be doing. So now you can focus on these other variables that you don't have as much control over, the guy that showed up. And so you're just building in, and this is, I don't know, maybe it's parallel. It's in the same playground as what we get into all the time, where it's, the obedience, the foundation with a good dog is so much more important than that dog's ability to flush a rooster, in general, for a dog's performance. And that's, maybe I'm wrong here, but we see amateur trainers think they got to train their dog to hunt all the time.
Absolutely.
And really, you got to just train your dog to listen, because that dog, if you get a good dog, he knows how to hunt.
If you give it enough opportunities and it's an actual dog, it will figure it out in spite of you. But that obedience, the hard part is that, all the various breeds have nuances. And so one of the things that I always say about the Spaniels is that their head are filled with squirrels. I mean, just think of the hamster on the wheel in there. That's what a Spaniel is. All the Spaniels, whether it be a Springer, a Cocker, a Boykin, a Welsh, a Clumber, or a Field Spaniel. And when I say that, I don't mean that that's a negative. That's a great characteristic, but it's just different. 1,000 Spaniels to 1,000 Labs, 1,000 Pointers, and whatnot. So their mind is quite active, and they're always looking to do something good or bad. And so you need to recognize that and keep them engaged. The simplest thing that people could do is if when your dog is in the field, if your dog understood that when you stand still, that's the same as saying here, it would eliminate a ton of problems. Now, that's not going to save you if the dog's taking a running rooster. And I can tell you, if my dog came back to me because I was standing still while it was tracking a rooster, I don't want that dog. Okay.
Nope.
But, when the dog should be paying attention to you, and when it sees you stand still, what if you fell down? What if you tied your shoe? What if, whatever goes on, it's that simple. If they would learn that standing still is a command, then that would inherently keep that dog with you without you doing anything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's a pretty cool thing.
It's an amazing thing. And I love your honesty about Spaniels, because the reality is they are built to go. I mean,
Yes.
People look at them and they're adorable, right? Like you see a little English Cocker Spaniel, that is an adorable dog, and generally a super sweetheart. But that dog is built to cover ground, and its mind is built to say, I want to go, I want to go, I want to go. And so we talk about this on nearly every podcast, where people look for a dog because of aesthetics. They're like, oh, I think those dogs look really cool. And I'm trying to start this movement where I'm like, forget what a dog looks like and think about what you want out of your dog and what you're going to ask your dog to do, what your lifestyle entails, both in the field and mostly at home, and be honest so you can get the breed that works for your lifestyle. I mean, if you have the right stuff going on, a well-bred Springer could be awesome for you.
I love Spaniels. Okay. It's what we do. But I will tell you, if you have a talented Spaniel and it is untrained, it will be the worst hunt you've ever been on in your life, because they don't point, or they shouldn't. So therefore, they're not going to stop 200 yards out there and wait for you. They've got a ton of prey drive and go. So if it is untrained, it will rid the countryside of every bird that's out there, and they'll just wait at the end for you to give it a ride home. Okay, so I mean, and the interest in Springers, has dwindled. I mean, it used to be much more popular, and I do think that that's part of the reason. We hear it all the time. So when their experience with a Spaniel is, the dog's running off, it's too much energy, and these are all terms that the misinformed use to try to explain what they saw. The fact is, the dog was just untrained, and it sounds like it probably was a pretty nice animal.
Yep.
But we all wax poetic on what hunting is and sunsets and all these other things. Nobody's going out there not to pull the trigger. Yeah. I mean, that's just the way it is. And so if you can't pull the trigger, you think it's a bad hunt.
Yeah. I
mean, look back at the podcast. You're out there, you're pounding cover. Everybody judges by if there's birds in the bag. And then, if there aren't birds in the bag, they come up with these other things. But nobody gets their limit. And then when you ask them how the hunt was, talks about the sunset and everything else first.
Yep.
They tell you they got their limit, and then they start to talk about all these other things. So I could love all breeds. The hard part, I think, I like the movement you're trying to do, okay, with this, find what tool you need and then, and can deal with. My experience being a professional is that the education of people is really low. They struggle where to get the information. social media has certainly allowed everyone to have a voice, and
Yeah.
I'm not so sure I think that's a good thing.
It's
And if
not.
you don't, if you don't know anything, how do you know what is good information and what isn't?
Yep.
And you know how it is with dogs, or ask someone, what's the best dog food? What's the best breed? Everyone's got their bias, myself included. And I think it gets difficult for someone that's really trying to do the right thing, but where do they go? Where do they turn? Where do they, so I think if we took 10 great labs, 10 great pointers, 10 great setters, 10 great spaniels of various breeds, 10 great Vizslas, whatever it is, and you took 100 people and we all walked around and watched those dogs work, I bet all 100 people would like every one of those dogs.
Yep. 100%. I mean, that's that point. You can't stress that enough. Good dogs are awesome. And
absolutely.
And poorly trained, undertrained dogs suck. And it's, if you have a dog, we call it go juice. If you have a dog with a lot of drive, like a spaniel probably will, and it is not trained very well, it is going to be a nightmare in a lot of situations. I mean, we just as an example, in the neighborhood I live in, I haven't met him yet, but a new family moved in, I don't know, 3 houses down. They've got a Springer, and we pulled up. I have twin 7-year-old girls. We pulled up to my driveway the other day, and this dog went down the road at 170 miles an hour. I mean, it was like my daughters were like, look at that dog. And it ran into our backyard, and it was into the front yard in like a half a second. It was like magic. And what happens with that dog, I'm guessing, I don't know this yet, but he's locked up all day. And they get out there whenever they're out of work, and they let that dog go, and he just in his nature has to go. And that's a dog that needs to be worked probably a couple times a day and go do some long drills and just shake out the, So we know they need the exercise. We know, they need to get out, figure stuff out and shake off the cobwebs a little bit. But I felt like you were going to, a place that I hear some trainers go to where it's like, our dogs need structure. They need challenges, tasks. They need to be doing more. Because, I mean, in the everyday life, a lot of people, they think, well, my dog needs to get out, get some exercise. It'll be good. But that's like part of it. They need, I always look at it from the terms of my little girls. I'm like, yeah, they need to get out and run and play and catch frogs and catch fish and stuff. But they love it when you give them a task. Like they love it when you give them something to do that they can work on and figure out. It can't be so tough that it's frustrating, or it gets them, they can't not complete it, but they need something to work on. And it's like, I hear this about dogs a lot, where we kind of miss that part. Is that like, you don't, I'm sure, but amateur handlers, the weekend warriors, they kind of miss that you got to build in more than just the exercise. You got to build in things for this dog to accomplish, and the confidence, and through these baby steps and stuff.
I agree with you. People would be surprised at how little free time our dogs have. So they're going to, in the morning, feed, clean, maybe be in the errand yards. Not a fan of errand yards because it's just total playtime and chaos for dogs. Don't like doggy daycare, play day, all that other stuff. It just creates bad habits. One of the hard things with a conversation, Tony, is the choice of words are left to be interpreted in lots of different ways. So I'm always trying to figure out ways of communication that, someone can't just take that and go the other direction. So when I say obedience, we generally classify dogs less than a year to year and a half, and then over a year and a half, roughly. So obedience for our dogs that are less than a year of age, there are no rules. All we're going to be doing is spending time with that dog with a clicker, with treats, with a target stick, and we're just going to be trying to shape behaviors and create a problem solver. So I agree with you that dogs need task, but it's, for us at that young age, it's not a task of you need to go make this retrieve, you need to, run all the way over here to this board. So 5 a.m. is my time in the morning. So I get up, and whatever puppies we have in the house, the puppies and I, we go to work. I'll go down in the kitchen, one at a time. We don't feed them their meal. They work for their food. So we, measure out their morning feeding, and we use that as treats. And so as an example, today I had one puppy in there. She's 4 months old roughly. And so if I think about it, first thing I did with her was have her hop in front of me at various times, treats. Then I had her hop in the very corner of the cabinets in the wall. Why? Because she can't go anywhere. She has to line up what ultimately the way I want, but because of the spatial dynamics, she lines up. She thinks she's choosing to do it. So there's no stress. In her mind, there's no stress, even though I'm training, but she doesn't think it's training. So she gets the treat. Then I use a target stick, and I can kind of put her in the heeling position because, touch on the stick. And then I walk along the cabinetry in the house. So I have a berry on one side of me, and she's just following that target stick, and I'm arbitrarily giving treats and so forth. No leash or anything. I'm not talking to her. There's no cues. After that, what did I do? I sat down with a piece of PVC between my legs. Every time she touched it with her nose, I gave her a treat, a click and a treat. And now she's had this, so then she quickly started putting her mouth on it, and then she put her mouth on it and hold it. So I'm just doing all these baby steps, but just those three activities, the hop in, the walk in with a target stick at heel, and grabbing that PVC. Think down the road. Whether I'm going to need that dog to hop when it's told or sit when it's told. I'm going to need it to walk next to me at some level, and I'm going to need it to go out and grab things with its mouth. So this puppy is, in her mind, playing these games. So it's not that we're not actually training, and that's the dynamics of words and what they mean. But if she doesn't grab the pipe, the PVC, you're not telling her no. You're not getting frustrated. I'm just going to wait. And if I sat there for 40 minutes, I'd sit there for 40 minutes. And as soon as she touched it, bam, she'd get a treat. If she's not touching it, then as soon as she looked at it, she'd get a treat. So we're just going to work her sequentially, but then we're going to make it more and more difficult. So like for that puppy in particular, these times she's actually now starting to hold that PVC. So she will never get a treat again if she touches it. That's not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's amazing how much harder they'll start working.
Yep.
And they'll work hard, and they'll just start offering behavior. So in that first year, we're trying to create dogs that are they're not afraid to experiment per se, to try different things. So I talked about the dog hopping in the corner. Believe me, you'll be waiting there, staring in the corner, and that puppy will be up behind you. Just keep waiting because she's saying, "Okay, I'm sitting. Does this work?"
Yeah.
And then she just keeps trying different things until she figures out the one that's working. And then, of course, there's a lot of steps involved in that. But the concept is we're creating a dog that is going to work for itself in a manner that we're going to benefit from down the road. And if there was one thing I can encourage everybody to focus on, it's getting their dog to become a problem solver, getting their dog to offer behaviors to try to earn rewards, because it's the number one inhibitor in all the dogs that come in for training. They quit. They're just lazy. And if that's what your dog is, it will require force to get training done. And obviously, you probably can tell we're not big fans of force if we don't need to.
No, I mean, what you're describing is an amazing low pressure approach to allowing the dog to develop at their pace, which, they're pleasers. They like the rewards. They're going to come along with you. And so my question with that strategy that you've got going on there is that a spaniel specific type of training strategy, or would you use that with any dog?
These days, I'd use it with any dog. We haven't run labs. We haven't bred labs in, since we were guiding, so 2010 or something.
Yep.
Although we have, we've had them in from time to time. These days, we don't take in any. I mean, if my good client bought, a Shih Tzu and said, "Hey, I need some help," I'm in business, so I'd certainly help. But these days, we're only bringing in Spaniels. But I think that's, in the end, it's a Spaniel, but it's a dog. But you need to ask yourself what you're looking for. If I'm going to get, your breed of lab, and I want to try to go win a national with that lab, I would not do what we do. Okay, stick with the tried and true Lardy Rex Carr methodology. Why? It's been proven to work so many times.
Yep.
Don't reinvent the wheel. Once you're experienced and you want to flirt around the edges and make some adjustments, have at it. But I'm not the same trainer today that I was 20 years ago. And hopefully I won't be the same trainer 20 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
But I would do this with whatever dog came in. The problem is it takes patience.
Mm-hmm.
It takes patience. But this is my job. I don't have anywhere to be. This is, I'm already at work.
That point, people ask all the time. They ask me all the time, how long does it take to train a dog? And it's like, how do you answer that? It's entire life. But what you're talking about with your low pressure, not even throwing a leash on these dogs for the first year, that's a long game approach. People are coming into this and they're going, how do I get my dog to do this, and this as fast as possible? And what you're saying in a roundabout way about the problem solver dog is you're taking a dog or your dogs and working on their intelligence, working on them to get to do something which has like all these behavior aspects to it. And it's just like an entire process. It's not just a point A to point B sit or point A to point B retrieve or something like that. You're developing like the entirety of the dog's skill partially through its intelligence.
We are, because the end game for us is, make no mistake about it, you cannot train a dog to a high level without some type of aversive training, whether that be an e-collar, whether that be physical, whether that be voice. I've read everything in, Michael wrote the Boda Shore theories on training and all that other stuff. You cannot get to that high level without some type of force. Maybe it's a little different with the agility where you can run right next to the dog and have a handful of treats. Okay. But and maybe you can get there if you're happy with a dog that I wouldn't be happy with.
Yeah.
Okay. And we all have different tolerances, so that, that's wonderful. But for us, what we believe is that all the dogs, I guess I don't believe that all the dogs are different. I think that's a cop out. I think dogs probably fall into a relatively small grouping of different characteristics. But some of those dogs, all this work that we do, it's not going to matter. They're still going to be a pain in the neck to deal with. It's just the way it is. It's the power of numbers. But I do believe that no matter what the grouping is, even those dogs that are hard to deal with, if you can get all the dogs to start being problem solvers, if you can get all the dogs to offer behaviors that you're ultimately going to want, but you've allowed them to think they're doing it for them. When you do need pressure down the road, I think the pressure is diminished in the dog's view. So it allows you to end up with a dog with more style and pace, and enthusiasm, going about their work. We've all seen dogs that just don't look happy out there. Sure, they may go make the retrieve, they may sit when they're told, and it's not always a deal with training. Some of it can be a personality with the dog. And I think people need to realize that it's not as simple as that dog's tail is down, so therefore the dog's been beat. It's just not that simple. But I think we all can agree that it's certainly more enjoyable. It's more fun to see dogs that are out there with tails cracking and happy and excitement and all those other things. It's more fun for me. But the long game that you talk about, the trials, good and bad, but it is the only place to test the dogs, spaniel wise. Mm-hmm. And the game certainly has its flaws, without a doubt, just like hunting dogs have their flaws. But one of the things that you often see in the trials is dogs are really rushed. And because, the clients have demands and can only run a puppy till age 2. And, so there's all sorts of stress to get stuff done. But with that, you'll see a lot of really nice dogs at 2 and 3. And then a lot of those dogs just disappear. Okay. They can't deal with the stress of the training, can't deal with the excitement of the trials. There's any number of reasons, but a lot of those dogs disappear. I think that's sad. I think that's really sad. Yeah. And so I think that if people would give up the first year of their spaniel and just work on problem solving, engagement, relationship building type of activities, I think they'll pick it up on the back end. Instead of having a dog that at 7 and 8 has gone away, you end up with a dog that you're still hunting and enjoying, physicality, being a different issue. But at, 8, 9, and 10 years old, and they haven't got, in trial terms, trial wise, or they haven't got hunting wise, where they come out of the truck and they just take off because they know the deal.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard. You just get this puppy and it's cute and you want to show everybody. And of course, we all have 10 friends who did it faster and got a ribbon quicker and all that other stuff. And that makes for great advertisement on the internet, of course. But I think if you can give up that year, it really will pay dividends down the road.